Hello everyone. In this video we're going to learn how to make augments in Fortnite Creative using the new device system, just like the one you see on screen. So this is all the devices you're going to need for this tutorial, so it looks a lot more complicated than it really is, and it still may be complicated to you. I was the creator, so it shouldn't be incredibly complex for me. But there's going to be a bunch of random number generators, a bunch of triggers, a bunch of pop-up dialog devices. In the description and in the pinned comment, there will be the amount of each device that you'll need, so that you can place, because now you need to know, send this to trigger 45 instead of channel 45. So let's go ahead and begin with how I'm going to organize this. So there's kind of 3 steps. So this is step 1. This is step 2, and then step 3 is basically all these 4 little trees, I guess you could call them, with a bunch of primitive shapes. You don't actually need the primitive shapes. I have them there for organization, so it's easier for you guys to see what I'm doing. So we'll move over to the random number generators here. So this random number generator is the very first one. Decides which of these 2 random number generators will be triggered. So what you'll see is if the first one is chosen, it'll choose between the first 2 pop-up dialog, and if the second one is chosen, it'll choose between the other 2. So basically what it does is the first random number generator selects a pair, and then the second or third, whichever one gets chosen, selects which specific one it is. So we'll go into the settings of the first one. So they're basically all the same. It's just a 2 with a winning value of 2. And roll time is customizable to what you want. So these are the settings that will be different, the events and functions. So this event will on win send to generator 2, and on lose will send to generator 3. It doesn't really matter which order. Just make sure you know which order you chose. So this one is going to, on win, go to pop-up dialog device, and on lose, go to pop-up dialog device 2. So again, doesn't matter the order, just make sure you know which one. And then this one will go to 3 and 4. Alright, so now we'll go into the settings of the pop-up dialog devices. Most of them should be the same throughout. What you're going to see is augment selection. That is going to be in every single one. Choose between receiving. That is a description. So back in the day, you had to use only 8 characters, and I didn't change the system much before redoing it. So you'll see a lot of abbreviations, so that's why the description is necessary. You may not need it anymore. I still like to have the description. And then button 1 and 2 are what you're actually giving, the item that you're giving. So the first step is your first item. The second step will be a boost, like a perk, like a movement perk or a sprint perk or a shield boost or something of that sort. And then you'll just change the rest of the settings. They should basically be the exact same. The only thing that will be different throughout each pop-up dialog device is the description, the 2 buttons, what they're giving, and then of course the events. So this will give to item granter and then item granter 2. So if you chose the first one, which is med mist, button 1, you get med mist. If you chose button 2, you get the shield keg. So then in each of the item granters, there's actually no change settings. The event is the only thing changed. So ungranted, go to trigger 1 for the first one, and then this one is also trigger 1. So what you'll note about this system is if you get this pop-up dialog device, you are also going to get this one. The first randomizer decides your first 2 selections of augments basically in order. You can't have the first augment selection of step 1 and then the 4th of step 2. Step 3 is where it really gets randomized. So we'll try to stay in step 1. I'm trying to make this as easy as possible, so this is going to stay basically the exact same. Settings, just again change what the buttons say, and then drop the item in the granter and change the setting to trigger 2 when ungranted. So now for the third row, it's just going to be ungranted, go to trigger 3, and then for the fourth row, ungranted, go to trigger 4. And again, change the text of the buttons and you should be good. So that will complete step 1. So remember in the pop-up dialog devices that the granters that you're using are 1 through 8 and the dialog devices that you're using is 1 through 4. So now we are going to go to step 2, which is a little bit more complicated, but it is not too much if you are willing to stay focused for it. So here we're going to start with the dialog devices again. So this is dialog device 5. You're going to use 5 through 8 in step 2. So again, this is going to be your perk selection. Your second augment is going to be a perk. So it's going to be, health boost. As you can see here, I have health boost and then a sprint perk. So you'll kind of see some of the things I do. What you'll need to note is that you need to choose something that you can edit in a class designer. So things you can edit is overshield, your max shield amount, your max health amount, shield regen, sprinting movement. You can change quite a few things. There's a lot of augments that have been in the actual game that you cannot change in a class designer. So again, these are basically the exact same, except on button 1, it's going to go to class selector 1. And on button 2, it's going to go to class selector 2, not item granter. So in the class selector, these are the settings to change. So the first class is class 1, and then turn a bunch of things off. Same for this one, but you need to remember, this is class 2 now. It needs to know which class it's going to actually change you to. So the class selector doesn't actually decide what perks you get. The class designer does that. So if you've never used a class selector, class designer changes you to that class. Class designer designs the class. So this is going to go to the events. Make sure to go to trigger 5 and trigger 6 from this on class selected. So class selector 1 will go to trigger 5, 2 will go to 6. All right, so now we're actually in the designer. So make sure you choose which class, and then you're going to choose what to change. So again, I'll show you this again. You're choosing something that's in there, and then there should not be any functions or events. It's just change what needs to be changed for the perk. So this is fully customizable too. You don't have to use the exact same perks I used, although you will most likely have to use some of the perks. There will definitely be overlap in the ones you use. So now to row 2. So this is trigger 2 that's going to activate this pop-up dialog device. The events, so again, responding button 1 goes to, so what you'll see is I actually have a trigger in here. Now I didn't have a trigger in the first one. So the reason why is because in the last one I had the trigger was to trigger on the class being assigned to you. This, instead of the class selector doing it, the pop-up dialog device does it. It's the same thing, just on a different device. So you'll see here you don't actually need to add anything here. So again, if in here it should be trigger 10 and trigger 11. So you might notice the last time we did 5 and 6 and we're skipping. There's a reason we're skipping, and you'll see later, which is just going to make it a lot more simple. You'll see why I did that, and in step 3, it's just going to make everything a lot easier. So again, choose your text and whatnot, and change the trigger to trigger 10 and trigger 11. And again, it needs to go to class selector 3 and class selector 4. So go ahead and edit these just like the other ones, and you'll basically copy this down. I'll tell you what triggers need to be put out, but I'm not going to show you every single designer. So dialog device 7, which is the third row in step 2, will go to trigger 15 and 16. So if you'll take the guess, it goes up by 4 triggers, or I guess 5 triggers each time. So it started at 5, 6, 10, 11. 5 or 10 is 5 more than 5. 11 is 5 more than 6. And then it went to 15, 16. 15 is 5 more. So the next one will be 20 and 21. So now that we're done with step 2, I'm going to kind of show you how I have this set up, where the triggers go to, so what trigger 5 and 6 are, what 10 and 11 are, like what do these even mean, what are they actually going to. So I will show you right now. So the setup here is, so this dialog device, so these class selectors, because I did it different in the first one than I did in the other ones, I just wanted to show you 2 different ways to do it. They go to 5 and 6. This trigger right here is 5, this trigger is 6. So you'll see the setup and how it works a little bit. So 5 will go to this dialog device, 6 will go to this dialog device. So they're different. This is where you get to different branches of augments where you can kind of get overlap, but it's not going to be the same augment. So like if you get the first augment choice, you're not going to get the first perk choice too. So here's the settings of trigger 5. It's basically the exact same as the other ones. But I am going to show you how this works. So that dialog device goes to one of these 2 choices. So you can only go up and right. So this dialog device goes to that choice and this choice. So porta bunker and launchpad. So the porta bunker you can get it from either one. So the porta bunker goes to that dialog device, which goes to that trigger. That's just how I have it organized. And then from the porta bunker, if you choose the porta bunker, you can get the shockwave or the grapple. For this one, you can get the dialog drop or shockwave, and from the porta 4, you can get the gold AR or the grappler. So there is overlap in the items. You don't have to have it like that. I have it set up like that. Again, you do not need these primitive shapes. I have it organized like this so that you can see where everything goes to, and I definitely suggest you maybe don't use the primitive shapes, but definitely organize your devices in a similar way to how I have it. So another easy way to understand how this works is, again, you can only go up and right. So if you get this dialog device, you can go up and right. So you can go all the way up, you can go up and right, you can go right and up, or you can go right and right. You don't know which one you're going when you're actually in game, but you can see which items you're getting based on what you choose. So you can't go like shockwave bow and then get the bunker after. It doesn't work like that. I only have a 4 augment system, which is as many as there were in game, but you can do more. It's going to be an extra row basically of dialog devices, triggers, and item granters. So something else I'm going to show you is there are some of items that I have in multiple branches. So, you know, if you get branch 1, you can get a same item that you can get in like branch 4. So that's just how it works. Like you can use the same channel, or I guess device, because there's no channels anymore. But that's kind of what it's supposed to do. So again, in this setup, that trigger 5 goes to 9, 6 should go to 10. It is going to be complicated. I'm trying to explain it as best as I can so that I don't have to go through every single setting and every single device, because I want you guys to be able to customize it your own way. So what I was showing there is the dialog device goes to the 2 granters, so you'll see what I'm doing. So on the responding button, it goes to item granter 9 and item granter 10. So 10 is the bunker and 9 is the fortress, or fort. So again, on item granter 9, it'll go to this trigger. So on granted, go to this trigger, which activates this dialog device, which for me is 11. So once you're in 11, you'll get the 2 options again, gold AR and grappler. Make sure you have the granters. When responding buttons are chosen, it'll go to gold AR, grappler. So that's basically how this system works. you can place each device as you need it instead of placing, all of the devices at once, like I had it in the pinned comment. But again, so 5 goes to here, 6 goes to here. And again, Launchpad is the choice. So if you choose Launchpad, this is the order. If you choose the bunker, these are the two. If you choose fort, these are the two. So it's a trigger, dialog device, and a grantor. They all match up. So what you just saw is basically the first branch. So all the branches are the exact same with different triggers. So again, this one goes to 10 and 11. This is from step 2. Note what triggers were from each step. So step 2 will go to branch 2. So you get 10 and 11. There's 11. You'll see in the third one, it's 15 and 16, just like it was in the third. And then here should be 20, 21, just like it was in the fourth row of the second step. Make sure that they all match up. It's super important, and it'll work so smoothly. Because there's no channels, it's much harder to mess up. It's definitely more work than the channel system was, but it still works just fine. So I'm going to go over this one more time just to really get it, make sure you know how to do each branch, because I'm not going to go through each branch. So trigger 5, untriggered, will go to this dialog device right here. So this dialog device goes to the fort and the bunker. So you have the augment select, the fort, and bunker, which are the 2 grantors there. So then, when you choose responding button 1, it goes to trigger 7, or the next trigger that you choose, and the grantor. So it grants and it goes to trigger. This is trigger 7. That's the grantor. Grantor 9, I believe it should be. And then responding button 2, 10, and trigger 8. Trigger 7 will go to the next dialog device, the dialog device that's in between the gold AR and the grappler. As you'll see here, it goes to pop-up dialog device. 11 is to the gold AR and the grappler. Now, there doesn't need to be a trigger because this is the fourth step. It doesn't need to roll another augment. You're done. There is one final step to this tutorial. So you have the system built. How does the system activate? How do you get the augments to start? So what I usually do is have a timed objective that's 2 minutes. After 2 minutes, it goes to the next, it starts the augment system. So what I have here is a tracker. So it tracks elimination. You can start it on elimination 2. It doesn't really matter. If you want to test, what I usually do is have a sentry or henchman, something that can count, not even as an elimination, but it'll go to something that can, when eliminated, goes to the random number generator. So you'll see here I have a sentry just for testing, just to make sure the augment system works. It's not testing that the timer will work, it's testing that this will send to, so you'll see here, activate, receiving from sentry on eliminated. So something I forgot to mention, and you'll see as I'm starting the game, is that the triggers all have a 5-second delay. You do not want a 5-second delay. You want maybe a minute or 2 minutes. I have 5 seconds just so you can see the augments going quickly. So I know I said every trigger will be the same. They will, basically. The time is not right though. The time needs to be whatever you feel. If you think 5 seconds is enough, which it shouldn't be, then you do 5 seconds. Although I would definitely have the delay on a minute or 2, or even a minute and a half, or 3 minutes, or whatever you feel is necessary for your map. So with that being the last augment and it all working smoothly, hope you found this really helpful. This took a long time to get into editing. So I really hope that you either enjoyed this or found this helpful and you can actually use it in your maps correctly, and hope it all works out for you, and I'll see you guys in the next one.